We're good. Okay, so what's good, everybody? This is BIG CED, the Industry Cosign, back with another. Well, I guess he's a friend because I've known him. Like, actually, before I start, Wes Jackson. Out of everyone I've done, Chia Lee, Special Ed, Chip Fu, Keith Perrin, like all the people I've done, Evil D. Wes is the first is a person I've known the longest. Like everyone else met me once I got in the industry, but Wes, we can have a conversation about that in a minute. But Wes has known me the longest out of everyone I've talked to so far. So this, my friends are better than yours, is definitely, like I said, this is like a childhood friendship. So, and for some people that this is the first time you're coming in, or you come just for Wes, what I typically do is, with my friends are better than yours, I want people to realize that I do have some great friends, and I like to give my friends props. And I've been like writing for years and doing things, but I decided to do this podcast for this particular purpose because I know so many people that are doing a thing. And if you don't know, I want you to know by the time this video ends. But anyway, I always let my guests interview themselves because I always mess up. So this is Wes Jackson, president of BRIC, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, and then we'll take it from there. It's on you, Wes.
All right. It said good to see you. This shoot, how far we go back to being a little shorty, running around, trying to keep up with you and and Rob and the whole crew. But yeah, my name is Wes Jackson. I'm the president of BRIC Arts Media. We are a multi-discipline nonprofit arts and culture organization located in downtown Brooklyn. We one of our most famous programs is BRIC Celebrate Brooklyn, which is New York City's longest running free concert series that happens in Prospect Park at the Lena Horne Band Shell. We also maintain the cable franchise, and we have 6 channels that, for those who are my lovely people, still have cable boxes. We have 6 Brooklyn free speech channels, which is the artist, I like to say the artist formerly known as BCAT back in the days, is we run. We also have a wonderful art gallery and a media education program.
Cool. So it sounds like you do a lot. Now, yeah. What I always do, I already told you off cameras, I want to, I want to find out what you're doing now and what your passion is right now, because as people who watch this know, it can go anywhere. Not in a bad way, but just because, like I said, with the friendships I have, like, we're friends for a reason. So I just want to get the more, I shouldn't say more important stuff, but the pertinent stuff, because everything we talk about is going to be important, regardless of whether they deem it important or not. But I know that you've recently written an op-ed for, I think, Brooklyn Magazine.
Brooklyn Magazine. Yeah.
So, and I know that, like, I'm trying to act like I'm a real reporter for like 5 seconds and then go off to what everyone's used to me being. The name of the article is the Existential Threat Facing New York Public Media. That's it, right? Okay, yeah. So why don't you tell the people, like, what does that mean? Because of course, I mean, I read the article, but of course, like, until the people read the article, like, I want them to understand why this is something that you want to talk about and you wrote an op-ed for.
Sure. As I said, I was sort of making a joke about the media aspect of what BRIC does. So a quick background is maybe we all remember when New York City got wired for cable and cable got into every buildings. There was a law passed that the cable companies had to pay into 2 funds for the what's called the public right of way, because they ripped up public streets to lay this cable. They have to pay the city a portion of their earnings for maintenance, what's called capital funding, obviously, to maintain the wires in the ground and the damage it does to the city. And then they also have to pay into community media access centers. And in New York City, each borough has what's called the cable franchise. So there's us, there's Manhattan Neighborhood Network in Manhattan. Queens has QPTV, there's Staten Island TV, and BronxNet, up back around the way. So every subscriber to sort of the old desktop, tabletop cable service, whether it be Spectrum or Verizon or Altice, if you look at your bill, there's a little itemization that says franchise fee. That money goes into a fund, which then all the media centers have, each media center in the borough has access to. And that's why we do our classes, we program, and we program those channels, and it even helps to underwrite things like Celebrate Brooklyn, and our gallery shows keeps the cost low or free. But the reality is now, cable used to be real cool and like the flyest thing. I remember, said when it came to our neighborhood, it was just like the greatest thing ever. Now
it took 20 years, but yeah, it was great.
It took a while long. I was back from college by the time I remember Cablevision was sitting in the lobby, where we were. But now, as we all know, younger people and older people, everybody is getting rid of the cable box. So what happens is every time you get rid of that cable box, that's less money that me and my comrades across the city get to do our thing. But the problem is people say I'm cutting the cord, but the truth is you're not cutting any cord. You're unscrewing the cord from the box and plugging it into the router, because your high-speed internet still comes from those cables in the ground, right? It's not coming from anywhere else. So the op-ed was saying, hey, we tied our revenue to these boxes. The boxes are gone. Our revenue is dropping, yet media consumption and the need to educate people about how to become, like we say, producers, not consumers, is becoming more important. So it's going the wrong way. We're getting less money where the work that we do is becoming more important. So that's really op-ed is a little bit to sound the alarm, to get the public to realize we're still here, even though, back in the days, BCAT, Brooklyn Free Speech, all of these things, WNYC, TV, we were the original YouTube, right? We were the original podcast. When something like this said, you remember the days, you had to be on Hot 97, with Ralph and them to be able to have an interview like this. But now we have the technology in our own hands. So even though the technology has changed, our channels are still here. The equipment and everything you would need to do something like this, we still have access to it. So we just want to make sure that essentially the technology and the law have not caught up with one another, right? The law still has us tied to these boxes, whereas the technology is now moved beyond the boxes. So we're saying we really need to get our fair share from the cable companies who are now recording record profits and doing great things. We're not doing it to get rich, to go hang out in Cancun or something like some people are, but so we can keep providing these essential services. I got you on that one. You keep calling me rich. Only one of us is in Cancun right now.
Yeah, you just threw me off. Do you being that is an issue as far as a monetary status, is it possible, or has a company like yours reached out to politicians to try to make something happen where, because of course there's going to be people that's just going to be like, they're not going to care, not right. that you're doing your thing, but because if they can save a little bit of money to cut the cost of cable and do streaming, as you stated, HBO, well, Max, still people are still going to watch Max, maybe not through cable, but HBO will still get their money.
Yeah.
Are there any politicians or anybody trying to, or in your corner, or trying to do anything that can?
For sure. Yeah. We have a lot of allies and elected officials. The good state senator Kevin Parker, who's out in Brooklyn, is actually the chair of the telecom committee up in Albany. So he's been trying to help us figure this out. We have another Bobby Carroll, who's another state representative, whose district is right around Prospect Park, has been a great a friend of ours. So those are just two of our, what we call our champions, that are now trying to get this legislation through. So the op-ed was also, we had a bill that we were trying to get adopted called the Community Media Reinvestment Act, which would modify this mechanism by which we get paid and add, the streaming services really to it. So we're trying to get that passed. But as you know, in politics, it's got to be a burning issue, and people don't really think that this is like a burning issue. And there are real, there's healthcare and union issues and reproductive rights, very important things. So the op-ed was saying it's us too, because we serve the entire public. We're here to tell everybody's story. So with the consolidation of media, I know you've been seeing all these things about Atlantic and Warner, all this consolidation. It's getting dangerous that we may wake up and there may be 3 news sources. And that just seems like a very dangerous landscape from a freedom of speech perspective. So definitely. We're trying to really address it at that level, but also from the ground up.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Because I mean, what you do and what the other companies do is definitely important, not just for the community, but just in general, because a lot of people have started, with the smaller community program in order to get specifically media, because it's not me specifically, but then you have people, actually, great example, Video Music Box.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, I'm for people that don't know, I came up with Ralph McDaniel's Video Music Box, and their show was on public access, well, still on public access. So it's if it wasn't for Video Music Box, there's a possibility that a lot of the rappers that you've seen on Video Music Box, for the older heads, you may not have seen, because MTV wasn't messing with hip hop back then. And nobody really knew. So it's we need to still keep that around, because you never know. And with the way technology is going, and I just think that a lot of entrepreneurs as well start with public access, because how are they going to know how to run a business if they're not running a business?
Exactly. You can't just start. You can't just start on MSNBC or BET or whatever. And you're right. What Ralph did was a little bit slightly different, but where Video Music Box is now is on M&N in Manhattan. So you're right. We have so many. We're digging in our archives. We're pretty sure we have Nicki Minaj's first performance, in our archive somewhere, because who was given, who's going to give, a random, West Indian woman a chance to perform on TV? It ain't going to be the Grammys, with all due respect. It's people like us. So if we are underfunded and face more, have to do more cuts, or God forbid, have to, some other smaller operations are facing extinction, well, then where is the media world how are you going to get fed, right? How are you going to find the next Ralph McDaniel? Because we know the next Ralph, the next Hype, the next Big Ced, the next Tuffy, all of these people are out there. There's got to be a mechanism for them to move through. And that's what that sort of somewhat dramatic headline of the existential threat, because then it's only going to be, and let's also keep it real, if it only stays at that top, you're going to silence the voices of Black and brown communities, LGBTQ communities, people with disabilities. It's going to cut through, and then every voice that's just not in the majority, in that very thin slice of a majority, is going to go quiet, and then I just think the world becomes a worse place.
Definitely. Now I want to go focus on, actually, before we get into what I want to talk about, I guess it's important to let people know, what is your role, not title, but what your role is with BRIC Arts and Media. So that way, because I know you've been president for a little more than 2 years, right. But we're going to go into a lot of stuff you've done before this. But I want the people to know, like your role and why you're such an important man, particularly at BRIC Arts and Media.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting, as a president, sometimes people are not always aware of what it is. But, as you imagine, I'm responsible for all the day-to-day activities, from supporting, the programs to, people and culture, what people just call HR, to make sure that all of our employees are feeling fulfilled, working with finance to make sure that, we're in a healthy fiscal position, and, watching the dollars and cents, is, trying to get the money to come in, but also making sure that we're not wasting money going out. And then there is a little bit of, I work with our chief, I support our chief program officer, who's essentially responsible for all the things that we do, all the concerts and the exhibitions, But overall, you know, I think the best way to explain it, this is what one of my mentors said, is it's almost like a head coach, right? I'm not necessarily calling the offensive plays or the defensive plays on the day-to-day. I'm not in the weight room, you know what I mean? I'm not making them run sprints, but it's making sure that the whole team is running at optimum efficiency. And again, I like to say, as our chief program officer, Darren Johnson, likes to say, supporting people. I have a very much of a servant leadership role, where the higher that you go, the more you actually begin to work for your people. So I'm just kind of in there, kind of looking around corners, trying to avoid problems, trying to solve problems while they're small. But as we were saying before, at the end of the day, I'm in here trying to get money for the organization so we can continue to do, you know, really what we do. And then I would say, but back to the coach metaphor I was using, it is to be a bit of a cheerleader, right? I'm out in the public trying to explain to people, doing things like this so they understand what BRIC does and why I think it's an awesome organization, and increasing our profile and just trying to get people excited about all the good work that the team is doing.
Now, there's a couple people out here that knows who you are without actually knowing who you are. So, and I say that because for 15 years, you were involved with something that a lot of people that may be watching right now have attended, and if they haven't attended, they've been to, and that's the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival.
Yes, yes.
You created that, like I said, years ago, and I know you've had Jay-Z. You've had, if they were hot in hip hop, if they come into New York, they're definitely hitting your stage. What drew you to actually start doing the Brooklyn, and of course Brooklyn Bodega, but like I said, that could be, we can talk about that as well.
Yeah,
but with the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival, like that became a big deal. Actually, if I'm correct, didn't De La Soul, like, I can't remember, like so many things that have happened at Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival that, like I said, we can literally sit here for hours talking about things that happened that people were like, oh snap. But what was the purpose of you starting Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival, and why did it last for so many years?
Yeah, that's great. Well, I also want to shout out my wife, Ebony, who was my partner in all of that. And while I was doing sort of marketing and the creative and a little business development stuff, you know, she was doing the production and finance, some of that less interesting stuff to the public eye. But to be honest with you, said the reason why I did it, we had, in 2004, me and my wife had gone down to New Orleans and went to the New Orleans JazzFest. And, you know, a couple of my chapter brother and one of her homegirls were living down there in New Orleans, invited us out. And I just had a great time, you know, seeing, you know, Frankie Beverly, rest in peace. And I saw Mystical and eating beignets and crawfish. And I was like, yo, I really got a sense of what this town is about. And I came back, that was in the summer of 04, and in the early part of January of 05, I was getting ready to have, you know, we were getting ready to have our first child. So I was stressed out, like, oh man, I'm going to do it. So actually I wound up going to the Dodge. I can't figure this. I went to the Dodge YMCA and was in there on the elliptical machine. And I said, yo, that was such a good time. That was the New Orleans Jazz Festival. I said, yo, we should have like a Brooklyn hip hop festival that could celebrate, you know, all the diversity in Brooklyn and the culture of hip hop. And it was as simple as that. And I went into the office the Monday, and we had a whole list of things on the agenda items. And it was the last thing, it just said Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival. I said, hey, y'all, I had this idea. What you think? And everybody was like, yeah, whatever. It sounds cool. And I was like, we'll come up with a better name later. But I just had this idea. And then 6 months later, we were up and running. Okay. And then I think why it ran so long, I think that, you know, we hit on a market, right? There was that market that was probably like right around near our age. We're beginning, you know, that golden era was aging out. There was young people like Little Brother coming up, and there was no real platform to celebrate the generations. So we always tried to have, you know, an established legendary artist with somebody coming up, you know, and the best example of that, I remember in 2011, we had Q-Tip, and friends. And, you know, he brought out Busta and Black Thought and all his other people. And one of the people he brought out that year was Kanye. But what people don't remember that year is the opening act was Kendrick Lamar, who it was his his first festival in New York that he'd ever played. And this is before Section 80 had come out. So, you know, it was always to give a platform. And I think that people really responded to the authentic love, you know, that we had for the culture. Because when you look back, sometimes I think in somewhat self-indulgent way, I was like, these are basically just shows I wanted to see over the years. And as much as, you know, that's a little self-serving, it was always authentic. And you always knew that lineup was being programmed by a hip hop head and people committed to the community. And I think people just really began to really enjoy it.
But I mean, because of course I used to do parties, celebrity games. I've never done a festival, so I'm not even going to try to approach that. But I know the work that goes into even throwing parties. Let me rephrase that: throwing successful parties, because anybody could throw a party, but
right.
Because you know, of course, I did parties for like 30 years. But being that you were new as a festival, how are you able to get the now some people like the bigger name artists, because people are always amazed at, you know, when you bring something, especially when you're new. How are you able to bring those guys in and get them to get involved with something that when it first started that has never been done before?
Yeah. Well, I think it was building off of the success of excuse me. You know, we had a marketing company right before we went headfirst into the festival called the Room Service Group, which was also like an output of Seven Heads, which was our marketing and record label. So to be honest, we were leaning on a lot of the record label contacts that we had from the marketing company, which, you know, to be honest, it was the real, well, I mean, there's a sort of a theoretical inspiration of it, but the practical thing was we were doing online marketing with the Room Service Group, and clients began to say, oh, you know, I see all these people online and in these forums and on, you know, Hip Hop DX and places that, you know, that you've written for, said, but there was really a question like, is this really real, right? Are these people real? Are they real consumers? So we actually got into the live event business to justify the invoices for the online marketing business. So we could bring out a client and be like, see these 1,000 people? These are the nerds that are on OK Player, you know, that are buying, you know, the Common album. See? And it was very self-serving. It was almost a commercial for the marketing business. But after the first year, you know, I remember after that very first event, we were like, this is more fun, this event stuff. You know, this marketing thing is so invisible. You never got to see anybody. And, you know, we made a lot of money, but it wasn't creatively stimulating. So then we kind of switched, and like you said, got out of an easy business and I got into a hard business because it really satisfied us. But that was, to be honest, as an industry, you know, insider, that's why we could call Atlantic and get Lupe Fiasco, you know, to play, you know, in 06 or 07 or whatever it was like that. And that's why you could realize that, you know, Styles was on tour. So, you know, we could catch him. And, you know, Pharoah Monch, who I dealt with when he was, you know, we used to promote his records on Raucous. So I could call Monch and be like, Monch, you want to come and headline this concert? So it was a little bit of, it's almost like BRIC is the next evolution of everything that I learned that I put to work. But the festival was a real thing of like, I could just call people and they know me, you know. It's almost like this my friends are better than yours energy of like, people know me and my name was good in the streets. So when I had this kind of unproven festival, they were like, well, all things considered, let's give it a shot because those are good people, you know, at Brooklyn Bodega.
Now I'm gonna expose you for a second, because I remember when I first heard about, you know, well, I knew about Brooklyn Bodega and the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival. And then I said to myself, I know that guy. I'm like, he represents Brooklyn hard. I'm like, yo, it's like, you would think that, like, you know, he put Jay-Z, Big Daddy Kane, all of them on. And then I'm saying to myself, but I knew him from around the block, and I'm from the Bronx. I'm like, how is it? And like, the festival was probably one of the most successful Brooklyn things that was on a consistent basis, because some people have done things but was never able to duplicate it.
Yeah.
But
it's hard.
you went for years. You had Jay-Z. You had like real hip hop. Like, when people do things, and no disrespect or shade to anybody that does these things, but some people wasn't able to even get a representative of a friend of somebody who actually headlined the festival. So it's like, and I'm saying to myself, I know, like, when I reach out to people for like some Bronx shit, it was easy because I'm from the Bronx. We met up in the Bronx and all that. But then I'm saying to myself, Wes is from the Bronx. Like, how did he pull that off? I'm like, we grew up together, like literally a block away.
Right.
Like when we were like knee high to a toast, and I'm like, how is this guy representing Brooklyn? But not only representing Brooklyn, but representing Brooklyn so well, better than people who live their whole lives in Brooklyn. Like,
well, see, don't say that. You're gonna get me in trouble saying that last.
No, I know, but this is not indicated. It's not indicated on you. I'm just talking about them. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I know, and it's true. Some people, especially people around the way, they're being like, Wes, what you doing? Like, yo, what you acting? You supposed to be Mr. Brooklyn.
I was offended for a minute. Brooklyn and the Bronx do not get along.
I know, and I never hung out. The only time I ever went to Brooklyn was I went to Spike's joint, back when I came home from college. So to say that I grew up as like a Brooklyn dude is crazy, right? We from around the way, Soundview, Lafayette, all of that, Story Avenue. That's really where my roots are, and I'm never tried to front like it wasn't. But the reality was, when I went away to college, I went away to University of Virginia, met my wife, and just to keep it real, like that creative energy wasn't around the way, where we grew up. It was clearly in Brooklyn, in that Fort Greene, Clint Hill, Bed-Stuy area. And just to get my career trying to come off as an industry, to get a foot in the industry, you had to be there. There was nothing in, what I'm saying? There was nothing really in Soundview that I saw. So I kind of gravitated towards that energy, no disrespect. But around that, right, you have Mos and Kweli and, you shoot Wordsworth and all them dudes was, Punch and all of them. That I was popular. They had Joe Loft, Brooklyn Moon. It was such a fertile energy. And my first job was right on Atlantic and Washington, working at a small record label. So I just kind of stayed around there and I enjoyed it. And then my wife is from Queens, and she was like, "Yo, I'm not, no disrespect, I'm not trying to go back to Corona because it's not really popping over there." So we just sort of merged. And you remember those days? There was a lot going on in Brooklyn. There was a lot of money in there. There was a lot, when I came home, Big was still alive. The Junior Mafia dudes is all around. It was a lot going on. So that's why the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival is not me trying to act like a born and bred Brooklyn dude. It's almost like I'm almost giving my thanks, right? Because if it wasn't for that energy in Brooklyn in that like mid 90s, I don't know where I would have been. So I just want to celebrate that. And like you could be from the Bronx, you could be from Hong Kong, you could be from Compton. It didn't really matter because it was just these really positive people that I was drawn to, for sure.
And I don't want anyone like watching thinking that I'm trying to hate or no, it has nothing to do with that. Like I said, I'm partly teasing him, but like I stated, I know Wes. It was basically a thank you, Brooklyn. Let me give this to you while I'm here, and it worked. And I'm proud. I'm proud of what you accomplished with that. And that, of course, it led to other things where you're still able to do something that you can do, as opposed to a lot of people still trying to find their way.
Yeah. But I gotta say, said before I go too far, there's also something to be said for, that now I'm thinking about a lot with you, right? When you came back and I remember turning on the MC Lyte video and being like, yeah, and I know, and I'm sure people needle you about this, but to somebody who just had a dream and had no way to understand how it was going to manifest, to realize the dude right down the block somehow got in, kind of always put a battery in the back, like, well, we could figure this out. Like Ced figured it out. And then when you hooked up with Ralph and, you know, you became a media person, you know, there was a couple people around the block like Rash and, you know, Chris Washington and this, and y'all a little bit older than me, that I would look up and being like, well, I can do this. Yeah. Because look, and these dudes is right on the block and they're doing it as well. So I just want to shout you out. And I think sometimes people don't realize how far back, and it was the same kind of like, how do you do that goes? And I wonder how many people, you know, watched your trajectory and you gave them a little inspiration. So just want to shout you out before we go.
Well, thanks. It's funny because when the few people that have told me that, like, I'm thinking that, because, you know, I'm very sarcastic. I'm always joking around. So I'm taking things like that as a joke because, like, you know, I've had people tell me that, like, literally, like, I've even had a couple of actors tell me, seeing me in the MC Lyte video and knowing me, gave, like you said, gave them that, like, you know what? Well, this guy, because remember, and this is what I tell people, videos back then were movies.
Yeah, exactly.
No, like nobody was in videos because videos was like the newest thing, and then people associate me with Brooklyn. To this day, people think I'm from Brooklyn because MC Lyte's from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
MC Lyte's from Brooklyn. So it's like, aren't you from Brooklyn? I'm like, no. I've had guys that know me for years and think that because I was in MC Lyte's video that I'm from Brooklyn. I'm like, no, I'm from the opposite borough, the Bronx. I said, I hate Brooklyn. And I hated Brooklyn so much that most of the women I dated during that time were from Brooklyn. But no, I do appreciate that. And I want to give props to Tuffy. Because Tuffy was also that catalyst because his sister Cheryl worked with Ralph.
Oh, was that their plug? Was
yeah.
And Tuffy was over on Morrison, right?
On Morrison, yeah.
Yeah.
You on Colgate, on Morrison. Yeah. So Tuffy's sister Cheryl, she worked with Ralph. And when I first met Ralph, like Video Music By had just started, but like Tuffy, because like I said, me and Tuffy were best friends at the time. So anywhere Tuffy was, I was. And I went to a video set because, you know, like I said, those were movies. So for us, it's like a video where the Bronx hip hop. So of course I'm interested, but I went as a PA. And after the first meeting, for whatever reason, well, okay, I'm gonna tell you the story. A lot of people don't know this, but well, no, I'm not gonna say a lot of people, but you know, some people don't know this. I was always gonna be in MC Lyte's video, but not as the main guy. Now, Tuffy and I used to hang out with Carl Payne. At the time, he was Cockroach on the Cosby Show.
Okay, yeah.
No, Cole from Martin.
Right.
So what ends up happening is that I don't know who, but they got in touch with him and they wanted him to be Sam for the video, for MC Lyte's video.
Yeah.
So I forgot how I was pulled in, but it's like, you know, you could be his best friend. So that's why there was 2 girls on the train. Because people always ask me, why 2 girls?
Oh, so you were supposed to have one and Cockroach was going to have the other one?
Exactly.
Oh.
What ended up happening was, now, right before that, I was at Dougie Fresh video. Now, me and Dougie Fresh were friends because right before that, his girlfriend and my girlfriend were sisters. So we were cool. So I'm actually like at the video, keep riding to the top. I'm at the taping for the video. And this is when I found out that 6-minute video can literally take all day or several days, right? So we had the video all day and the camera's always going by me. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in the video. Of course, I went home, went to Colgate, went to boy. Yo, I'm about to be in the Dougie Fresh video. This is that and the other. Video came out. No, Cedric. You know how we were back then. They clowned me so much. So when this opportunity came up, right? I said, I ain't telling anybody anything. I'm not even telling my mother. But what ended up happening was the morning of the shoot, Carl calls me. He didn't call Classic Concept, Ralph's gonna come. He didn't call anybody. He called me and said, yo, I'm not doing this. I said, what? He said, I'm not being in the video. I was like, why? He said, because they're clowning me for being Cockroach on the Cosby Show. I don't want to be typecast.
Oh, interesting.
But coincidentally, his next big role was Cole on Martin.
Which was kind of like Cockroach.
Basically an older Cockroach.
Yeah.
So
he's a legend. He's a legend because of it.
But the funny thing is that But because of that, like we went to the video set and they're calling his reps. And when I got there, I'm telling Lionel Martin, because Lionel Martin was Vid Kid.
The Vid Kid, yeah.
And yeah, him and Ralph did the video. And I was like, he's not coming. And they're like, what do you mean he's not coming? I said, he called me this morning and said, and I told them, they looked at me like, what kind of bullshit is that? So then Lionel said to me, he's like, would you feel comfortable being the lead in the video? I'm looking at him like, what are you, stupid? What do you mean? Of course. And I'm like, okay. But of course I wasn't excited, but I'm like, yeah, I can do it because I'm going to be in the video anyway.
Yeah.
Even if it's for 2 seconds, I might be hugged up with the girl after that part goes and I'm out the video. But that's still more than what I had for the last video that I told all my friends. So that's how that happened, where I became the main character. And like that, and I didn't tell anybody until the video actually came out. I didn't have to tell anybody because when the video came out, everybody knew because Video Music Box.
Yeah.
MC Lyte's first video, she had Cram to Understand, so she was already bubbling.
Yeah.
So people already was expecting a lot from MC Lyte anyway. So yeah, and after that happened, I was working at Bloomingdale's at the time. Yo, it's so funny because I had women come into Bloomingdale's once they found out I worked there to ask for my autograph. Like I was getting approached and I'm like, this is just, and my mindset was, it's just a video. It's not a TV show. But also back then, like I said, videos were movies.
Yeah.
Nobody was able to get in videos.
And that was an important thing though, but because you think about Lyte, but now in history, that idea of, Lyte as a protagonist, you know what I mean? Like, and then Sam is like a legendary fictional character, you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot to unpack about how important that was. And we didn't get it at the moment, but we clearly did get it. And for you to be associated with that character I think that's significant for sure.
Luke and Giz still call me Sam. But you know what's funny? Another thing. Now I had a part going like this. I can't remember, like something like this. I have guys telling me that they started wearing their hair like that because of seeing me in the video.
Because they want to be like Sam. Nah, that's dope, man. That is dope. That is dope.
But the thing is, like, I just didn't realize, like, I knew the influence of videos and music and things of that nature, but I'm like, I didn't see myself in that way because I had plans to do other things. Like video was just something that, and I can't front. That got me in so many different ways where when people see the video today and they didn't realize it was me, it's like, yo, why didn't you tell me? That was 30 plus years ago. And shout out to MC Lyte because she just dropped her 8th studio album. And after, I think, 10 years of not doing music, something along those lines. And I also have to give her a shout out because I told her about this podcast. And like I said, I always fumble the ball and just don't do anything. She hit me up like 3 times, like, yo, when we gonna do this? And I'm like, you know what? That's love. I was like, we got to get it done. But, we're definitely going to get it done. But like I said, I appreciate the fact that she's like, let's do this. When there are some people that's like, I got to ask, like, no, I don't ask more than twice. Because I'm like, if I got to ask more than twice.
Yeah, you got to go through their people and all of that stuff.
I'm not doing it because for this particular thing, my friends are better than yours. If you're my friend, and like I said, I don't anticipate everybody saying yes or jumping on it right away. When Special Ed did it, me and Special Ed was talking about it for like 2 years, literally. So I get it from that aspect, and I take responsibility because I'll ask, and then 6 months later, even with you, it wasn't the podcast at the time, but I'm like, yo, I want to feature you on my site on Industry Cosign, but then I didn't follow up with you. And that's why, I don't know if you remember when I did send you the last email, I'm like, I know I reached out to you before.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
I'm on a different thing now. I'm more focused, this, that, and the other. But anyway, this isn't about me. Let's get back to you. Now, before I forget, you have a function coming up.
Yes, because I do have to run. I gotta run about in about 8 minutes.
Okay.
But yes, so we have just to make sure that we get it in and the PR people and everybody's happy. But another one of our signature performing arts programs is called BRIC JazzFest. Yes. And so BRIC Celebrate Brooklyn happens in Prospect Park all summer. And then in the fall, we have BRIC JazzFest in BRIC House. Okay. Which is downtown Brooklyn, 647 Fulton and Rockwell. Right up the block from the McDonald's on Flatbush and Fulton. But this is our 10-year anniversary for BRIC JazzFest. So I think it's, as unbiased as I can be, it's one of the best shows in New York City. Primarily not because it's like, oh, such and such is playing, or some of the name dropping, that you were doing about like what we did at the festival. You had, Jay-Z, Kendrick. It's we're getting all of those people on the upswing, right? We had like somebody like a Kamasi Washington's first, New York play. But you can really go into JazzFest, and it's jazz and its influence. So there's a little bit of like, you can get some blues in there, you can get a little hip hop in there, you get a little neo soul in there, a little rocket thrown in there, but all under that black improvisational music tradition. And I think it's one of the greatest events. So it's coming up this October. I would encourage everybody to come check the website. Let me make sure I get the dates right before they kill me. But it's a great show, and we have a guest curator, sister named Brandy Younger. So if you ever go check her out, she is really, she plays the harp, and is just kind of bringing that flavor to an instrument that usually seems very like, classical and kind of, out of the way. But Brandy is just one of the brightest lights, I think, in all the music. And it's been great that we've been able to work with her to curate this. So it's like a night of discovery. And if you're a jazz head, you're just going to be in heaven. But it's a great show. October 17th to the 19th. I want to make sure I get that on there.
Cool. I'll definitely make sure I put that, when I write this out. But I do appreciate your time, and like I know we can like literally go for hours and still have more things to talk about. But I do appreciate you taking time, because I know you're on the road, you're doing your thing, and you took the time to talk to me, and I definitely appreciate that. You know what? I'm a dummy. Let the people know, how they can contact you, or even if they don't contact you, how to get information about what you're doing or what BRIC is doing.
Yeah, sure. You can go. The best places to go is to follow, BRIC on Instagram, which goes by there's a couple of ones. BRIC Brooklyn is our main Instagram. BRIC Brooklyn, like it's spelled out. I'm just making sure I have that right. BRIC Brooklyn is where you can get all of our stuff on Instagram. You can follow me here on Wes Jackson on Instagram, and you can kind of touch base with things going on with me. And really, really with BRIC, but that's the best place to follow us. You're going to follow us on we're on TikTok now, on Threads, on X, Facebook, all of that, and you'll have all of you can stay up with our events. And I would say this is that BRIC is great. We do these what we call public programs of JazzFest to celebrate and all these other stuff. But if you want to be, Sed and I kind of got on, as he predicted, this sort of tangent about. I think really said what I was glad to hear all of that. It's really like representation in media, right? Is that we were listening to MC Lyte on Red Alert and listening to all this other stuff, but she still seemed like an otherworldly person, right? Even though her and Milk and Giz, the First Priority, were basically just like us. But I think when I saw somebody like Sed on Video Music Box, Ralph McDaniels did the video, VidKid did the video. Quite frankly, I saw a bunch of black people that looked like me, and one who lived, on the same block doing it. You need that. You need to see it so you can believe it. And I think that story that Sed you were talking about is really what we try to do in, at BRIC. Is we're going to give you the tools so you can tell your own stories. Because again, Ralph and Creative Concepts to do that, they had to borrow the equipment. I mean, it was so Herculean back in those days. But now BRIC exists. You could do that right now. You could start your own version of Video Music Box right now for like $5. You take like the $5 orientation class, and you get access to $1 million worth of equipment. It's like a library, for creators. We offer you classes in podcasting, in documentary filmmaking on your phone, screenwriting, Photoshop. And because of our funding source, which is why that article is so important, you're talking about classes that most of them are free. Maybe the average is $15 a class, so you can really come in here and get access to our equipment and get the ability to tell your own story. And it's important because, again, back in the days, back in the 80s, it was, it was just like seeing said, on Channel 31. And now we've done a lot better because people like me and this brother put in work, right?
Definitely.
And got me to this position. We exist now to make it a little easier for you to make your movie. So I just hope everybody can support what we're doing at BRIC, and it ties all the way back to to what was going on in Story Ave, all them years ago.
Yeah, that's spelled that right? BRIC Brooklyn. That's spelled correctly.
Yeah,
right?
That's it exactly. That's perfect. That's perfect. So, but I appreciate you said. Thank you. Thanks for thinking of me. I'm glad we could get connected.
No problem. We need to do this again because I still have like 7 things on my bullet list. Because like I said, I knew what happened. That's why I was like, let me try to get the more important, for lack of a better word, matters out, so that way Joe and Wendy doesn't like yell at me for not
exactly. They're gonna yell at me too. Like, what were you doing? We set it up in there, but we get in there, and then I'd be happy to do it again, and we could just kick it. And I actually have some questions for you that I would love to hear. Some stories of your journey that I think are also important. So let's do it again for sure.
No doubt. Once again, people's Wes Jackson, BRIC Arts Media, Brooklyn. Check out, as you can see, the BRIC Brooklyn username, any social media. And this is Big Said, Industry Cosign. As I always tell you, my friends are better than yours. And if you watch this video, you know why. Until the next time, thanks once again. And peace.
Word up. Peace. Thanks, Ed. I'm out.
No problem. If I can get out of here. End stream. You would think I would notice by now, right?